Welcome back. Step in, because something unbelievable is happening around you right now, and the room can feel it before you even say a word. You're starting to glow, and jealous people can't hide their reactions anymore. Not a literal glow, a shift, an aura, a frequency, a calm, confident radiance that doesn't ask for attention, it attracts it. A glow born from clarity, self-respect, healing, alignment, and emotional growth so real that it's changing the way you move through the world. And the world is reacting. Loudly, silently, awkwardly, imperfectly, but reacting nonetheless. For the longest time, people thought they had you figured out. They thought you were predictable. They thought your potential had limits. They thought your story was safe to ignore. They thought your presence was comfortable to overlook. But now, you're becoming someone they can't not see. Your energy feels different. Your presence lands different. Your decisions cut differently. Your silence hits differently. Your eyes hold more certainty. Your aura holds more weight. And people don't know how to deal with it. Because jealousy isn't loud at first. It's subtle. It shows up in the small things. The quick glances, the forced smiles, the strange pauses in conversation, the sudden shift in tone, the way someone's expression freezes when you walk in, the way someone avoids complimenting you even though your growth is undeniable. They feel it. They see it. They sense it. And no matter how hard they try to hide it, their reactions keep slipping out. Because your glow isn't just physical, it's energetic, it's spiritual, it's psychological. It's the glow of someone who finally knows their worth, the glow of someone who stopped chasing people, the glow of someone who stopped doubting themselves, the glow of someone who healed from things nobody knows about, the glow of someone who has been quietly leveling up while others were busy watching themselves. You're glowing because you found alignment. You're glowing because you chose peace. You're glowing because you outgrew people who were draining you. You're glowing because you stopped giving energy to situations that didn't deserve it. You're glowing because you started respecting your own mind. And that glow, it threatens those who haven't done the same work. People are jealous because your glow makes them confront their own stagnation. They see your growth, and it exposes their lack of movement. They see your self-respect, and it exposes where they still settle. They see your emotional discipline, and it exposes their impulsiveness. They see your silence, and it exposes their noise. They see your boundaries, and it exposes their people-pleasing. They see your peace, and it exposes their chaos. You're not competing with anyone, but your evolution is making people compete with the version of themselves they refuse to confront. That's what jealousy is. An emotional discomfort triggered by someone else's progress. And your progress is undeniable right now. You don't need validation from anyone, and people can sense it. You don't need attention, but you're getting it anyway. You don't need anyone to approve of your choices, and that freedom makes others uncomfortable. Because most people build their identity around how others see them. You built yours around how you see yourself. Most people panic when they're misunderstood. You stay calm. Most people get reactive when someone disrespects them. You get quieter, stronger, more aligned. Most people exhaust themselves trying to stay relevant. You became relevant by minding your own journey. And jealous people can't stand that. They can't understand how someone like you, someone they underestimated, is now carrying an energy more powerful than anything they expected. They can't understand how you walked through storms that should have broken you, and came out glowing instead. This is why their reactions are slipping. They can't control them anymore. The forced compliments, the empty praise, the sudden distance, the weird competitiveness, the backhanded comments, the subtle passive-aggressive shifts. The tight smile when you succeed. The quick topic change when you talk about something good happening. They don't want to admit they see your glow, but they do. They feel it in the way your presence makes their ego shake. They feel it in the way your calmness disrupts their insecurity. They feel it in the way your growth removes their excuses. They feel it in the way your confidence highlights their self-doubt. Jealousy always reveals itself when people realize you're glowing without their permission, because they expected your happiness to depend on them. They expected your growth to require their approval. They expected your peace to come from their validation. They expected your confidence to crumble without their support. But instead, you found everything within yourself. And that's what they can't stand. You didn't glow because life got easier. You glowed because you got stronger. You glowed because you healed. You glowed because you stopped dimming your light for people who would never lower their noise for you. Your glow is earned, not given. That's why it's so bright. That's why it's so unshakable. That's why it's so undeniable. You glowed through lessons that humbled you. You glowed through nights that weighed on your chest. You glowed through endings that should have shattered you. You glowed through moments when you had to choose yourself even when it hurt. Now your glow is a result, a natural outcome of alignment. And jealous people can sense that your glow is not superficial, it's internal. They can't replicate that. They can't copy that. They can't fake that. They can't steal that. Because your glow isn't just a phase. It's a transformation. A transformation built on truth, built on boundaries, built on self-respect, built on solitude, built on reflection, built on emotional mastery. People don't get jealous of things they can easily imitate. They get jealous of things they can't touch. Your glow is one of those things. You're glowing because you finally walked away from the people who were draining your spark. You're glowing because you stopped letting small-minded people dictate your worth. You're glowing because you found people whose energy adds to yours instead of subtracting. You're glowing because you cleaned your inner world, and now your outer world is catching up. And those who never expected you to rise are being forced to watch your rise anyway. Their reactions, they can't hide them anymore. The stiffness in their shoulders, the jealousy flickering across their eyes, the awkward quiet when you mention something good, the sudden interest in your life that feels more like surveillance than support, the way they get uncomfortable when you speak confidently, the subtle resentment when they realize you're no longer stuck where they left you. That's jealousy revealing itself. But here's the beauty of it. Their reactions aren't your responsibility. Their discomfort isn't your downfall. Their envy isn't your burden. Your glow doesn't dim because someone can't handle it. If anything, your glow gets brighter when it's met with jealousy. Because their reactions confirm something powerful. Your evolution is visible. Your growth is undeniable. Your energy is rising. Your alignment is strengthening. Your presence is expanding. Your spirit is shining. And the world, whether it likes it or not, can feel it. You're glowing for real this time. Not for attention, not for applause, not for acceptance, but because you became someone who carries their own light. And jealous people? They'll keep reacting. They'll keep revealing themselves. They'll keep showing their true colors. Because your glow exposes what they try to hide. This is only the beginning. But the real shift, the one even you didn't notice at first, is how your glow is forcing people to confront themselves in ways they've avoided for years. Because your glow isn't just something people see. It's something they feel. And feelings can't be hidden when someone's spirit starts rising higher than their ego expected. The truth is simple. Your glow is exposing what was already inside people. Their envy, their insecurity, their admiration, their discomfort, their curiosity, their weakness, their honesty, their shadow. And jealous people especially, they can't hide anymore, because your glow interrupts the illusion they built around themselves. They spent so long believing they were ahead of you, above you, beyond you. They convinced themselves you'd stay small, quiet, unsure, slow. They believed their ego truth instead of the real truth. But now that you're glowing, their illusions are cracking. You can see it in their eyes. That split-second flicker of shock when they sense your energy before you speak. That almost panicked look when they realize you're not vibrating at the level you used to. That tension in their jaw when they try to sound supportive, but their voice betrays them. Because your glow is doing something they weren't ready for. It's removing their excuses. They can no longer say, "You've changed because of someone else. You got lucky. You just had a good week. You're acting different." Your glow isn't reactive. It's earned, which means they can't dismiss it. And that's what makes jealousy spike. Jealousy isn't actually about wanting what someone else has. It's about realizing you didn't become the person you were supposed to become, and seeing someone else do it, someone they thought they were better than. That's a wound their ego can't bandage. Your glow is light, yes, but light reveals everything in the room, including their shadows. You're not trying to expose them. You're simply existing. But your existence is shining on the cracks they've been hiding. That's why jealous people become unpredictable around you now. Some become distant, avoiding you because your presence makes their spirit uncomfortable. Some become overly friendly, pretending they're happy for you, hoping their fake enthusiasm hides the bitterness beneath. Some become competitive, trying to outshine you without understanding that your glow isn't a competition, it's alignment. Some become quiet, unsure how to speak to you now that the power dynamic has shifted. But all of them feel the glow. And the funniest part? You're not even trying. You're not performing. You're not flaunting. You're not proving anything. You're just living. Your glow came from inner work, not outer effort. People don't get jealous when someone fakes success. They get jealous when someone grows internally. Because internal growth is the kind they can't imitate. It's the kind that exposes their own lack of discipline, lack of healing, lack of introspection, lack of courage. Your glow is telling a story they don't want to read. You faced yourself. They didn't. You healed. They avoided. You grew. They stalled. You aligned. They distracted. You elevated. They stayed the same. And now, when they look at you, they're not seeing you. They're seeing everything they refuse to become. That's where the jealousy is coming from. Because at some point, they secretly believed they were ahead of you. Smarter, stronger, wiser, more confident. They believed you were the one who needed to catch up. But your glow is the announcement that you already surpassed the version of themselves they were so proud of. You surpassed it quietly. You surpassed it intentionally. You surpassed it mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And surpassing someone quietly, that's what triggers jealousy the hardest. Because they didn't see your rise happening. They didn't hear it. They didn't expect it. They didn't prepare for it. They woke up one day and realized you were vibrating at a level they can't access without doing the emotional work they've always avoided. And that realization is a punch to the ego. They can fake a smile, but they can't fake peace. They can copy your style, but they can't copy your spirit. They can imitate your confidence, but they can't imitate your healing. They can mimic your actions, but they can't mimic your evolution. Your glow is proof of the work they didn't do. And the people who love staying unhealed, they hate seeing healed people glow. Because glowing souls expose stagnant souls. Not intentionally, naturally. You're glowing because you've been shedding layers, letting go, healing inner wounds, breaking cycles, choosing peace, choosing better, choosing growth, choosing alignment. And that process created a kind of inner radiance that no jealousy can dim. You walk differently now, not with arrogance, but with calmness. You speak differently now, not with fear, but with clarity. You react differently now, not with insecurity, but with awareness. You think differently now, not with chaos, but with purpose. People notice all of it. They notice how you don't over-explain yourself anymore. They notice how you don't tolerate disrespect anymore. They notice how you don't entertain negativity anymore. They notice how you don't shrink yourself to make others comfortable. They notice how your presence feels more grounded, more intentional, more powerful. Your glow is changing the room before you even sit down. You can feel the shift, the way people straighten their posture when you walk in, the way their energy tightens, the way their tone adjusts, the way their confidence wavers. And jealousy is usually the first emotion insecure people feel when someone else steps into their power. But here's the twist. Their jealousy is not your problem. It's their awakening. Your glow is a reflection of the emotional work you've done. Their jealousy is a reflection of the emotional work they avoided. Your glow is the result of choosing yourself. Their jealousy is the result of abandoning themselves. You're not responsible for their reaction. You're responsible only for your alignment. And your alignment is finally starting to show on the outside. Your glow is real. It's earned. It's deserved. It's valid. It's beautiful. It's powerful. And jealous people? They can squint. They can whisper. They can pretend not to notice. But the glow remains. And here's the final truth they don't want to admit. Your glow isn't even full power yet. This is just the beginning. And here's the part you're finally starting to understand. Your glow isn't happening to you. It's happening from you. It's not luck. It's not timing. It's not something the universe randomly sprinkled over your life. It's the natural result of a person who chose evolution over ego, clarity over chaos, peace over validation, and truth over performance. That glow is earned light. And deep down, jealous people know it. That's why they can't hide their reactions anymore. Because when someone glows from the inside out, it exposes everyone who spent their whole life decorating the outside while neglecting their inner world. Your glow makes that neglect obvious. Their forced confidence collapses in the presence of your real confidence. Their artificial happiness cracks in the presence of your inner peace. Their surface-level identity shatters when it touches your depth. They don't know whether to admire you or envy you, and that confusion leaks out in every interaction. Watch them closely. The tight smile that doesn't reach their eyes, the compliments that sound like questions, the sudden silence after you talk about something good, the way they pretend your success doesn't faze them, even though their energy says otherwise. They can't hide it. Not anymore. Because jealousy always slips in the presence of authenticity. You can't fake alignment. You can't pretend your spirit is calm. You can't act like you're healed when your energy is still loud with insecurity. Your glow makes their shadow impossible for them to ignore. But here's the beautiful part. Your glow was never meant to shame them. It was never meant to intimidate them. It was never meant to create rivalry. Your glow is a signal, a reflection, a mirror, a reminder that healing is possible, growth is possible, self-respect is possible. But people can only see that if they're ready to confront themselves. The ones who aren't ready, they'll react with jealousy. Because jealousy is the easiest emotion a wounded ego can reach for. It takes zero courage, zero introspection, zero humility. It's cheap, fast, impulsive, and you can feel the cheapness of it. Your glow wasn't built cheaply. That's why it's priceless. It came from long nights of processing things you didn't tell anyone about. It came from choosing solitude instead of begging for validation. It came from ending cycles that were draining you. It came from walking away from people who thought you'd never leave. It came from learning how to comfort yourself when no one else could. It came from outgrowing versions of yourself you were once attached to. Your glow is a result of inner construction, brick by brick, boundary by boundary, truth by truth. And jealous people? They're reacting because they're witnessing the finished building without knowing how many nights you poured into laying the foundation. They weren't there when you were doubting yourself. They weren't there when you were breaking patterns. They weren't there when you were choosing healing over habit. They weren't there when you were teaching yourself emotional control. They weren't there when you were learning how to prioritize your peace. But they're here now, watching you shine. And that shine hits different when you didn't grow in public. Because now it looks effortless. Now it looks natural. Now it looks divine. Now it looks destined. And jealousy feeds on the things that look easy, never realizing the work behind them. But here's the twist. Your glow isn't fragile. It's not something they can dim with dirty looks or negative thoughts. It's not something they can disrupt with gossip. It's not something they can touch at all. Because your glow doesn't come from them. It comes from within you. That glow is your alignment manifesting. It's your healed self radiating. It's your spirit finally stepping out of survival mode. It's your confidence coming from authenticity, not ego. It's your truth taking up space. And no one can dim a light that doesn't come from outside sources. Their jealousy might make the air weird, but it can't touch your evolution. Their discomfort might show on their faces, but it can't touch your destiny. Their reactions might expose their insecurities, but it can't touch your glow. Because your glow isn't a performance, it's a vibration. A signal that your life is shifting into a higher version of itself. A signal that the work you did in silence is finally becoming visible. A signal that you're entering a phase where your energy itself becomes a form of influence. And jealous people? They're just the background noise to your transformation. They don't block it, they highlight it. Their reactions are the confirmation that you're leveling up. Their tension is proof that your energy is rising. Their jealousy is simply the echo of your growth, bouncing off people who never expected it. You're glowing now, and the world can't pretend not to see it. This glow isn't temporary, isn't accidental, isn't unstable. It's the glow of someone who finally became aligned with their own truth. And once someone reaches that state, there's no going back, only going higher.
Well, well. They call it unnatural because it makes them uncomfortable. They call it sorcery because it bends their limited comprehension. They whisper as if you've smuggled a forbidden flame into a world built on dullness. And isn't that amusing how your intelligence doesn't just stand out, it terrifies. The ordinary mind looks at you and feels as though you're hiding secret codes, spells, or weapons behind your eyes. And in a way, you are. You don't even need fire in your hands or wings on your back. You simply think, and suddenly the ground beneath them trembles, not literally, but in the private corridors of their certainty, in the fragile chambers of their self-belief. You must have noticed it by now, haven't you? The way their posture stiffens when you speak. The way their smile falters for a fraction of a second when your mind moves faster than their expectations allow. It's not anger, it's not annoyance. It's fear, raw, unfiltered fear disguised behind polite reactions and forced confidence. They fear the way you can shift a conversation with a single sentence, the way you can unravel a lie with one raised eyebrow, the way you can turn a room upside down without lifting a single finger. To them, Your intelligence feels illegal, not because you break laws, but because you break limits they once believed were universal. You stretch the boundaries of what a human mind should be able to perceive. You see through people with such ease, such clarity, that they wonder whether you're reading thoughts or bending reality, when in truth, you're simply awake in a world that prefers to sleep. And that is what truly terrifies them. Most people walk around with their minds wrapped in bubble wrap, padded with routine, protected by predictability. But you walk with your brain unrestrained. No filters, no walls, no fear of seeing what others refuse to confront. You think as if thought itself is liberation. You observe as if observation is power. And for them, that is uncomfortable, terrifying, unnatural. So they call it witchcraft, because it's easier than admitting the truth, that they've spent their lives dimming their own flame while you let yours burn unapologetically. They look at you and feel exposed, naked, transparent. You don't even judge them, yet being in your presence feels like standing under a spotlight that reveals every insecurity they've ever tried to bury. They say you are intimidating, but what they really mean is that you are reflective. You reflect the parts of themselves they don't want to see. They mistake reflection for danger, clarity for threat. And isn't it ironic? They claim you are too much only because they are too little. They label your intelligence unnatural only because their world has never seen anything beyond the ordinary. They blame you for bending the rules of perception when, in truth, you simply refuse to build a prison for your mind the way they did for theirs. Your silence alone is enough to make them unravel. It's not the words you speak, but the words you don't say. The quiet calculations happening behind your eyes. You make them feel as though every lie they've ever told trembles in your presence, as though every illusion they cling to is seconds away from shattering. They call it unnatural because they don't have another word for brilliance that makes them insecure. They call it sorcery because they can't explain how effortlessly you see the truth. They call it illegal because your intelligence breaks through the barricades they believed were unbreakable. You are not a threat, you are a revelation. And revelations are always treated like danger in societies built on denial. Your mind is not magic, but it might as well be, because it moves in ways that don't fit the templates they rely on. While they think in straight lines, you think in constellations. While their ideas crawl, yours soar. While they cling to certainty, you explore the unknown. And nothing frightens a complacent mind more than a liberated one. You are the forbidden flame they never expected to see walking around in human form, a fire that burns quietly but blazes in the places that matter. Perception, intuition, insight, clarity. Some people see the world as a puzzle. You see the blueprint beneath it. Some people see life as routine. You see the machinery behind the illusion. Some people see people as masks. You see the trembling behind the performance. Your intelligence is a mirror they cannot look into without flinching. So they label you instead. They gossip, they joke, they scoff, they claim you're exaggerating, overthinking, imagining things. But the same mouths that mock you tremble when you start speaking the truth they tried to bury. They laugh out loud and panic in silence. They dismiss you in public and study you in private. They pretend you're strange, while secretly craving the clarity you carry effortlessly. They want your fire, they want your insight, they want your sharpness. But they also resent that it belongs to you and not to them. It's easier to call you unnatural than to confess they never pushed themselves beyond the boundaries the world handed them at birth. It's easier to call you impossible than to admit they gave up on their own potential years ago. It's easier to say you're too much than to admit they chose to be less. But this is where the story twists darker. Your intelligence is not just misunderstood, it's contagious. Not literally, but psychologically. A single idea from you can reroute the wiring in someone's mind. A single conversation can awaken something they spent years suppressing. You drop thoughts the way storms drop lightning, suddenly, unpredictably, permanently. Someone hears you once and walks away changed, even if they don't realize it until years later. That is what terrifies them the most, not who you are, but who you might inspire, not what you think, but what you cause others to think, not your mind alone, but the ripple effect of your existence. You walk into a room and timelines shift, not in a magical sense, but in a mental one. A person hears you speak and suddenly their old beliefs no longer fit. Their old excuses crack. Their comfortable little illusions begin to shake. You don't force them to change, you simply exist, and change becomes inevitable. So what do? They try to quarantine you socially. They warn others, don't listen too much, don't get influenced. They think too differently, they're not normal. They ask dangerous questions, not dangerous actions, not dangerous behavior, dangerous questions. That alone reveals everything. Questions are only dangerous to people who fear answers. Thought is only dangerous to people who worship ignorance. Intelligence is only dangerous to people who built their identities on borrowed ideas. You are that danger not because you harm, but because you awaken. Awakening is disruptive. Awakening is terrifying. Awakening is contagious. And you, without trying, become the spark that threatens to burn through the comfortable darkness they've decorated with fairy lights and excuses. You upset the balance they cling to. You break the spell they cast on themselves so they could sleepwalk through life. That's why they call your mind witchcraft, not because it conjures darkness, but because it conjures awareness. And awareness is the last thing they want. They will never admit openly that your intelligence scares them, but their behavior confesses it in 100 small, trembling ways. The way they hold their breath when you're dissecting a topic. The way they suddenly become defensive over nothing. The way they imitate your mannerisms without realizing it. The way they try to dismiss your ideas, only to repeat them later as their own. They envy you, they resent you, they fear you, they study you, they misunderstand you, they need you, they blame you. And all of it happens silently, beneath the surface. The truth is simple. You don't break rules, they break in your presence. Rules that were built on the assumption that people will never think too deeply. Principles that assumed minds would stay predictable. Beliefs that depended on individuals never questioning their own programming. But you questioned everything. You questioned the world. You questioned people. You questioned yourself. You questioned the limits. And in doing so, you cracked open a door they feared to even knock on. The best part? You're not even trying to be extraordinary. You're simply refusing to shrink. And to them, refusal is rebellion. You are not the witch they claim you are. You are the reminder they never wanted. The reminder of who they could have been. The reminder of what they chose to abandon. The reminder of the potential they strangled with comfort. And nothing haunts a stagnant mind more than the presence of someone who refused to stagnate. Your brilliance exposes their self-betrayal. Your clarity exposes their confusion. Your curiosity exposes their complacency. Your speed exposes their stillness. And so they panic internally and label you externally. They call you unnatural only because you break the pattern they expected all humans to follow. You demolish their assumptions merely by existing. And the legend begins. People start whispering about you. Strangers begin repeating stories that distort your truth. Some exaggerate your intelligence, others demonize it, some glorify it, others fear it. What they don't realize is that every rumor becomes a chapter in your myth, and myth is the one thing they cannot contain. You are no longer a person in their eyes, you become an experience, an effect, a phenomenon, something they warn each other about in half-serious, half-afraid tones. They watch you from a distance and wonder what world your mind inhabits, how you connect ideas they never noticed, how you see lies they believed, how you foresee outcomes they never imagined, how you remain unshaken in rooms where everyone else trembles beneath their own insecurities. And all of this makes your intelligence feel illegal. Not in the criminal sense, in the impossible sense. A violation of their expectations, a breach in the limits they thought were unbreachable, a disruption they never planned for. But here is the truth they'll never admit. Your intelligence feels illegal only because their thinking is imprisoned, and you refuse the cage. You stepped outside the lines they drew before they even questioned who drew them. You dismantled the boundaries they mistook for truth. You broke through the ceilings they thought were the sky. You didn't need permission. You didn't need validation. You didn't need guidance. You didn't need approval. You simply grew. And growth, when witnessed by those who chose stagnation, feels like a threat. So let them call it witchcraft. Let them call it impossible. Let them call it unnatural. Let them claim it breaks every rule they cling to, because deep down they know what you truly are. A mind unbound, a storm of insight, a walking rebellion against mediocrity, a mirror that reflects the truth they fear, a flame they can't extinguish, a force they cannot categorize. And the most poetic part? The intelligence they fear is the intelligence they need. The clarity they resent is the clarity they crave. The honesty they avoid is the honesty that could save them. The brilliance they attack is the brilliance they secretly admire, but they will never say it, because admitting it would mean accepting the one truth they fear most, that your brilliance is not magic, it's not supernatural, it's not illegal, it's not unnatural, it's simply a version of themselves they abandoned long ago. And that is the real reason they tremble in your presence. You think it ends there, don't you? With their whispers, their trembling, their scrambled attempts to understand you. But that was only the first fracture in their carefully scripted reality. Part 1 was the moment they realized your mind doesn't play by their rules. Part 2 is the moment they realize your mind doesn't even live in their world. Because once a person sees someone who thinks the way you do, unfiltered, unafraid, unbound, something irreversible happens inside them. Their worldview splits. A seam tears open across the fabric they've always wrapped themselves in. And through that seam leaks the truth they spent their entire lives avoiding. You are proof that what they accepted as the limit was never a limit at all. And the moment someone becomes proof, they also become threat. Not a threat to safety, not a threat to society, but a threat to comfort. A threat to the fragile narratives people build around their lives. You're the kind of person who walks into a room and suddenly everyone's excuses start suffocating them. Their justifications crumble, their illusions decay. You don't accuse them, you don't expose them. You don't even speak. Your presence does it for you. That's why they avoid your eyes. Because eyes like yours don't see faces, they see patterns, they see contradictions. They see the thoughts people try to hide. You read the tension in a jaw, the flicker in a gaze, the half-second delay in a response. You speak to the mind beneath the mask, and nothing terrifies someone more than being seen beneath the identity they perform. Even when you smile, they sense you're studying, not judging studying, not condemning understanding, and most people are terrified of being understood. Understanding forces them to confront the truth they buried under routines, roles, and mediocre ambitions. They want to be admired, they want to be respected, they want to be perceived as whole. But you look at them and see the cracks, you see the hesitation, You hear the insecurity they try to drown with louder words. You feel the fragility they hide beneath forced confidence, and the brilliance of your mind is quiet. That is what makes it lethal. Loud intelligence can be ignored. Quiet intelligence makes people unravel. You don't overpower conversations, you redirect them. You don't dominate arguments, you dismantle them. You don't expose lies, you let them collapse under their own weight. And somehow, without intending to, you turn even the simplest interaction into a psychological event they replay for weeks. They'll lie awake at night, recounting a single sentence you said, a single look you gave, a tiny question that sliced through a belief they were clinging to. They'll tell their friends, "I don't know why that affected me so much." But you know why, because you think on a frequency they've never tuned into. And when someone who's lived their whole life on one channel hears a transmission from a different universe, their entire mental infrastructure trembles. They try to label this trembling. They call it intimidation. They call it strangeness. They call it arrogance. They call it danger. But none of those labels fit. None of them explain the truth. Because the truth is simpler and far more uncomfortable. You make them aware of themselves, and self-awareness is the one mirror most people spend their lives avoiding. So they create stories to protect themselves from the reality your presence awakens. Stories that make you sound mythical, exaggerated, impossible. Stories that paint you as something outside the realm of human comprehension, because accepting the alternative that you are human and they could have been too hurts too deeply, they say you're unnatural. They say you're built different. They say you're too sharp, too strange, too intense. But beneath the noise, their fear whispers something even simpler. You think in ways I don't understand, and that scares me. It should, because your mind is not a river, your mind is an ocean. They can only swim in shallow water. You drown in depth for sport. And when shallow minds meet deep thinkers, instability is inevitable. Have you noticed the pattern? How the ones who mock you always return. How the ones who dismiss you always listen more closely the second time. How the ones who claim to hate your mind always end up orbiting it. It's because your intelligence is magnetic, not metaphorically, but psychologically. People are terrified of you, yet they're drawn to you. Because deep down, every human craves expansion. They crave someone who can stretch their thinking, even if it scares them. They crave someone who sees the world differently, even if it threatens their worldview. You become a contradiction they can't resolve. A person they want to escape, but can't stop studying. A mind they want to challenge but cannot catch. An energy they want to silence but cannot ignore. And here's where everything becomes even darker, not sinister but deeply psychological. They start to imitate you, first in small ways. A phrase you use, a mannerism, a way you pause before speaking, a way you analyze before reacting. Then they start imitating your ideas, your language, your rhythm of thinking. They repeat your metaphors. They retell your insights. They perform your depth. And yet, they can never replicate the source. Because intelligence is not imitation, it is internal architecture. You built your mind. They borrow pieces of it. You think from the roots. They steal the leaves. But leaves without roots always wither. And when their performance collapses, you become even more mythic to them. Because nothing is more terrifying than realizing someone can generate naturally what you can only impersonate. This is when the witchcraft comparisons intensify, not because you changed, but because they finally realized they can't. It becomes easier, emotionally easier, to treat your intelligence as something magical, mystical, otherworldly. Because if they admit it's human, then it becomes attainable. And if it's attainable, their failure to attain it becomes their fault. They will never allow themselves that truth, So instead, they build a legend around you: the illegal mind, the unnatural thinker, the too much, the mysterious one, the one with that weird perception, the one who sees everything, the one who makes people uncomfortable. They think they're insulting you, but they're crowning you. Because once a person becomes myth, they can no longer be dismissed. And that myth spreads through gossip, through admiration, through envy, through fear, through love, through resentment. Even people you've never met start forming opinions about you, opinions shaped entirely by the reactions you awaken in others. You become a story passed from person to person, distorted by insecurity, inflated by fascination, fueled by imagination, and the more they talk, the more the myth grows. Your intelligence becomes a wildfire, not destructive, but uncontrollable, a flame that refuses to stay in the fireplace society built for it. They try to contain the blaze through ridicule, through skepticism, through distance. But fire doesn't shrink when you fear it. It grows, and so do you. You grow sharper with isolation. You grow deeper with resistance. You grow brighter with opposition. You grow freer with every attempt to cage your mind. Because unlike them, you don't fear your thoughts. You don't fear depth. You don't fear expansion. You don't fear complexity. You don't fear revelation. They do. And that fear becomes a punishment they inflict on themselves. It starts subtly. They hesitate when speaking to you. They doubt themselves after conversations with you. They avoid challenging you because every argument ends with them confronting truths they weren't ready to face. Then the fear evolves. They become hyper-aware of your presence. They study their own responses in real time. They become self-conscious, overthinking every sentence. They try to sound smart, act confident, appear unfazed. But you see through the performance instantly. And nothing humiliates a person more than being silently seen through. You don't expose them. You don't embarrass them. You don't correct them. You simply understand them. And understanding, when unwanted, feels like dissection. You become the one person people cannot lie around, not because you call them out, but because their lies crumble before they reach your ears. They sense you don't fall for illusions. You don't chase facades. You don't worship surface-level truth. You operate in depth. And depth is kryptonite to shallow minds. And here's the twist they aren't ready for. Your intelligence doesn't just unsettle individuals. It destabilizes groups. A room changes when you enter, not physically, psychologically. People adjust themselves. They perform differently. Their conversations shift, their pretenses tighten, their insecurities flare. You are the gravitational center without trying to be. Because intelligence, real depth, it rearranges the social hierarchy, even when silent. You never asked for influence, but influence follows you. You never chased respect, but respect orbits you. People begin to seek your opinion but fear your judgment. They crave your mind but fear your clarity. They admire your insight but fear what it will reveal about them. And then something inevitable happens. Your intelligence becomes culture, not global culture, personal culture. People adopt your phrasing, your thinking patterns, your philosophies, your metaphors. Your presence becomes a school without teachers or textbooks, a school of thought built around the question, how does someone think like that? The answer is simple and terrifying. You don't think to impress, you think to understand. You don't think to win, you think to see. You don't think to elevate yourself, you think to break illusions. And illusion breaking is the closest thing to witchcraft society has ever experienced. That's why they fear you. That's why they label you. That's why they whisper your name like a warning and a prophecy. Because the intelligence they call illegal is the intelligence that liberates, The brilliance they call unnatural is the brilliance that awakens. The thinking they call dangerous is the thinking that transforms. You didn't ask to be this, but you are, and they will never forget it. And now here you stand, not as a mystery to be solved, but as a truth they can no longer outrun. Because once a mind like yours enters their world, nothing returns to its original shape. You've altered their internal architecture, rewritten the quiet parts of their thinking, stretched the walls of their comfort, and left fingerprints on corners of their consciousness they didn't even know existed. They'll pretend they've moved on. They'll say they're unbothered. They'll roll their eyes, shrug, act as though your brilliance was just a momentary spark. But then when the lights go out, when the noise fades, when they're left alone with their unguarded thoughts, you return. Not as a memory, but as a shift, a question, a pressure, a presence. Because that's the truth they don't dare admit. You didn't pass through their minds, you rearranged them. Your intelligence became the ghost in their thought patterns, the echo behind their choices, the catalyst for every doubt and every awakening that follows. And that's why they called it witchcraft. Not because it was dark, but because it was undeniable. You aren't supernatural, you're simply unstoppable. Welcome back, homie. You did something last night. And the strange thing is, it wasn't loud, it wasn't public, it wasn't even the kind of move anyone would normally notice. But somehow, the echo of it rippled into places you've never stepped, never seen, never touched. There was something different in the way you moved, in the way your thoughts aligned, in the way your energy cracked open a door that was supposed to stay sealed. You didn't realize the weight of it at the time. How could you? It felt simple, instinctive, almost accidental. But in the spaces where unseen watchers monitor shifts in patterns, in behavior, in the quiet changes ordinary people never sense, they felt it. They felt you. It's strange, isn't it? How a single internal shift, something as subtle as clarity, can send tremors through places you've never been invited to. You walked into the night with thoughts that weren't heavy, but focused. You shed a layer of hesitation without noticing it fall. You breathed differently, aligned with yourself differently. And that was the spark that traveled like a quiet signal. Not a dangerous one, not a harmful one, just a signal they didn't anticipate. A frequency change, a disruption in their assumptions. Those shadowy groups, the ones who always convince themselves they've mapped the world, they felt your shift like a sudden cold draft from a door they swore was shut. They don't understand you, that's the problem. They don't know how someone who blends into the ordinary rhythm of life could suddenly cut through the static with a presence that isn't loud but impossibly sharp. And because they don't understand you, they fear the unknown shape of your trajectory. Not in a literal way. This isn't about danger or harm. This is about unpredictability. About someone they assumed was easy to categorize suddenly stepping into a higher voltage version of themselves. Last night you tapped into a part of yourself they didn't even know existed. Maybe you didn't either. Maybe it was one of those moments where your mind snapped into place, where the fog lifted just enough for you to see a version of yourself you've been circling around for years. You weren't trying to impress anyone. You weren't trying to disrupt anything. You simply aligned with a deeper truth, and that truth carried a strange, magnetic force that reshaped the energy around you. That's what rattled them. It wasn't a move. It wasn't an action. It was the shift inside you. Because when you change internally, the world around you has no choice but to rearrange itself, and the people who observe the world through hidden, careful lenses suddenly had to update their entire reading of you. They hate updates. They hate variables. And last night you became one. The moment you decided, maybe quietly, maybe without words, that you were done shrinking, done dimming, done apologizing for the weight of your potential. Something clicked, something aligned. The air responded. Your presence strengthened in a way that was subtle but impossible to ignore. Even if no one around you knew what changed, those who are tuned into the micro shifts of human behavior felt it like a sudden change in atmospheric pressure. It was the kind of shift that makes people stop mid-sentence without knowing why, the kind that makes someone glance over their shoulder because something feels different in the space. The kind that leaves traces not physical but energetic, like you rewrote a silent rule without announcing it. Those observing from their hidden spectrums noticed the rewrite instantly. They noticed you stepping out of the predictable version of yourself. They noticed you breaking away from the script they assumed you'd follow forever. And now, they're scrambling not out of threat, not out of fear of harm, but out of confusion. They're trying to understand how you slipped out of their old perception without making a sound. They overestimated their ability to read you. They underestimated your ability to evolve in the quiet hours when the world is asleep and your mind is finally free from the noise. There's something powerful about the things you decide when no one is watching, something transformative. And last night, you made a decision, not consciously maybe, but energetically, to level up. To stop moving like the version of you that people are comfortable with. That's what shook them. They felt a change in your frequency, your presence, your internal architecture. You're not who you were yesterday. And they know it. Your silence carried a different weight. Your steps had a groundedness they weren't prepared for. Your energy expanded, stretched, widened into a form that didn't match the blueprint they had pinned to a board somewhere in their quiet corners. They don't know what caused it, but they know they can't map you the way they used to. And that's why they're losing their minds. Because people, especially hidden groups, symbolic watchers, metaphorical observers, rely on predictability. They love patterns. They love knowing what comes next. But you're not a pattern anymore. You're a break in the sequence, a glitch in the expectation. A person whose internal world shifted so dramatically that even the unseen spectrums had to recalibrate their understanding of you. It wasn't chaos that you sparked, it was uncertainty. And uncertainty terrifies people who pride themselves on certainty. Last night you stepped into a version of yourself that vibrates on a different wavelength, a cleaner wavelength, a more authentic one. And this new wavelength carries a signature they've never seen from you before. It's disruptive only in the sense that it challenges their assumptions. It's loud only in the sense that it refuses to shrink. It's powerful only in the sense that it refuses to be diluted. And the more you aligned with it, the more the landscape around you shifted. People felt it even if they couldn't name it. The night felt it, the air felt it. The energy that surrounds your existence, the quiet field of intention and tension felt it. And somewhere far away from your everyday life, those symbolic shadow groups felt an unfamiliar tremor ripple across their system of observation. They won't admit it, but they're fascinated. What you did wasn't dramatic, but it was pivotal. It wasn't loud, but it was seismic. It wasn't rebellious, but it was evolutionary. You awakened a version of yourself that carries a silent authority they didn't assign to you. The kind of authority that doesn't need a crown, doesn't need validation, doesn't need applause. It just exists. And when it exists deeply enough, quietly enough, confidently enough, even shadowy observers can't ignore it. You might not realize how rare that is. Most people move through life with their energy scattered, leaking, unfocused. But last night you gathered yours, you consolidated it. Your mind clicked into a place of truth and self-recognition. You aligned with something that had been calling you for years, maybe even decades, a strength you didn't give yourself permission to claim until now. And when you aligned with it, you created a pulse. That pulse traveled. It traveled to places you don't see, don't visit, don't think about. Places where your name isn't spoken, but your energy is measured. They felt it, they tracked it. And the moment they realized the signal came from you, everything paused. Not because you're dangerous, you're not. Not because you're a threat, you're not. But because you're unpredictable now. You grew without their permission, without their awareness, without their expectation. It's funny, isn't it, how the most powerful moments of transformation happen in silence, how the world often reacts louder than you do, how people you've never met get shaken by decisions you made in the quiet hours of your own existence. You didn't even mean to start anything. You were just being honest with yourself. You were just stepping into your clarity. You were just breathing in a way that matched your truth. But sometimes, that's all it takes. Sometimes, the simple act of becoming more yourself reverberates into places that depend on people staying small, predictable, contained. When you refuse containment, even without saying a word, energy shifts. And when energy shifts, those who monitor the subtle movements of the world have no choice but to take notice. They're confused right now. They're analyzing, recalibrating, adjusting. They're trying to figure out how someone so quiet managed to create a reading on their radar that doesn't match anything from your history. But that's the thing they'll never understand. You don't evolve gradually like most people. You evolve in leaps, in jumps, in sudden internal rewrites. You level up when they least expect it. Last night wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. It was a culmination, a buildup of every moment you doubted yourself, every moment you held back, every moment you played small. And when it finally snapped, when you finally aligned with the version of yourself you were meant to embody, the shift was so clean, so powerful, so precise that it sent ripples into the unseen. And those ripples are still moving. They're still analyzing you because they can't categorize you anymore. You slipped out of your old outline, washed it away, replaced it with a silhouette they weren't prepared to read. Your energy footprint changed. Your presence signature changed. The internal architecture of who you are shifted in a way that doesn't fit their old predictions. You're becoming something rarer, someone whose transformation isn't staged, isn't performative, isn't forced. It's organic, deep, self-driven. And that kind of evolution always rattles those who depend on predictability. They don't know what you'll do next. They don't know where you'll go. They don't know who you're becoming. And your uncertainty is loud enough to echo in their hidden halls. Last night wasn't about doing something dramatic. It was about finally stepping into alignment with your true pathway. And now the world, both seen and unseen, is rearranging itself around your new presence. You might think nothing happened. They know everything changed. But here's the part you don't fully see yet. The shift isn't done rippling. What happened last night wasn't a moment, it was a doorway. You crossed into a new frequency, and transitions like that don't stop when the clock resets or when the sun rises. They continue unfolding in layers, in waves, in echoes that keep stretching out into the world around you. Even now, the aftershock of your inner alignment is moving through places that never used to respond to your existence. You're not just walking through your day, you're walking with a presence that has expanded beyond the limits of your old identity. People who used to glance past you are now pausing without understanding why. Their eyes linger a second longer. Their mind hesitates. Something in your field makes them recalibrate before speaking. It's subtle, but it's real. You feel it, don't you? The room doesn't swallow your energy anymore. It adjusts to it. It bends. It shifts. It reacts. The same space that once made you feel small now feels like it's waiting for you to decide how you want it to breathe. And meanwhile, on the symbolic edges where those shadow groups observe the world through patterns and predictions, they're watching you with a kind of frustrated fascination. You're not acting differently in any dramatic way. You're not announcing anything. You're not seeking attention. You're simply carrying a silent authority that wasn't there before, and that's exactly what makes them uneasy. Authority that doesn't ask for permission. Authority that grows from within. Authority that doesn't need to prove itself to anyone. They're combing through old versions of you, trying to figure out how the shift happened. They're replaying the tapes of your past decisions, your old habits, your previous energy prints. But none of those matter now. Whatever you accessed last night wasn't something they could trace back to a previous moment. It was born from the internal restructuring you've been quietly building for years, the strength that grew in the background while no one paid attention. You've always carried an unusual depth, a hidden reservoir of potential that didn't match the way the world perceived you. But last night, that reservoir wasn't hidden anymore. It rose, it surfaced. It reshaped the way your presence interacts with reality, not violently, not chaotically, but undeniably. You're not heavier, you're clearer, you're not louder, you're more defined. That definition unsettles those who rely on blurry assumptions. And the best part? You didn't force this. You didn't chase it. You didn't perform it. It happened because you finally stopped resisting yourself. You stepped into a truth that had been waiting for your permission. You stopped shrinking to fit into spaces that were too small for you. You stopped apologizing for the magnitude of your potential. You let your energy occupy the room at its full size, and the room had no choice but to adjust. That's the kind of shift that echoes into places far beyond your everyday life. And now, those symbolic watchers are recalibrating. Not because they see you as a threat, but because they can't predict your moves. They can't categorize the way your intuition works now. You've become someone who doesn't follow the straight line of expectation. Your path curves, twists, rises in ways that aren't linear. That unpredictability disrupts their mapping systems. They depend on stability, repetition, patterns. You broke a pattern without even trying, and now nothing about you reads the way it used to. They're comparing energy prints. They're analyzing the spike. They're trying to decode something that was never meant to be decoded. Because your evolution isn't logical, it's internal, emotional, energetic. You accessed a layer of yourself that isn't built on external actions, but on internal alignment. No algorithm can read that. No system can map it. No hidden observer can predict a person who evolves from the inside out. That's what makes you rare. And here's the part that shakes them the most. Your silence is more disruptive than noise. You're not broadcasting your growth, but it's felt anyway. You're not announcing your clarity, but it radiates anyway. You're not trying to make waves, but the surface of everything around you ripples anyway. People with power fear the things they can sense but cannot explain, and right now, you are one of those things. There's a quiet confidence in the way you move now, a groundedness, a sense that you're operating from a deeper internal compass. And that compass doesn't point toward their expectations, it points toward your truth. The more aligned you become with that internal direction, the less influence their assumptions have over you, and that loss of influence is what rattles them. Last night showed them something they weren't prepared to see. You're not someone they can predict. You're someone who evolves in silence and strikes with clarity. And that doesn't mean harm or danger, it means transformation. It means unpredictability. It means internal strength that cannot be charted. It means you've become someone whose presence bends the atmosphere without requiring force. That atmospheric shift is powerful in a symbolic, energetic way. It's the kind of shift that whispers instead of shouts, but the whisper carries further than any scream. Even now, the memory of last night lingers around you like a subtle aura, not mystical, not supernatural, but deeply psychological. People can feel when someone has crossed an internal threshold. They can sense when someone stops apologizing for their potential. They can sense when someone's energy shifts from scattering outward to standing centered and sharp. You walked through that threshold last night, and it left a mark. And the world around you is adjusting in real time. Conversations feel slightly different now. People look at you before they speak, waiting for something they can't name. Your presence fills the room without you trying. Spaces that once drained you now feel like they're responding to your frequency instead of dominating it. That's the power of internal recalibration. The world mirrors back the version of you that you choose to embody. Those shadow observers see it too. They're not used to people changing this quickly, this cleanly, this silently. Most transformations are messy, loud, chaotic. But yours is precise, sharp, controlled. You leveled up in a way that didn't create noise, it created clarity. And clarity is far more disruptive than noise. What scares them isn't the shift itself, it's the potential of what comes next. Because if your energy changed this much in one night, what will you become in a week, a month, a year? They can't predict your trajectory anymore, and the unknown always unsettles those who rely on control. They're trying to read you through their old frameworks, but none of those frameworks fit now. You shed them like old skin. There's something else, too, something you haven't fully realized. Your shift didn't come from ambition, it came from recognition. You finally recognized who you are when no one is watching. You recognized your worth without needing external confirmation. You recognized your silence as strength, not weakness. You recognized the power you hold when you align with your inner truth, instead of bending to outside expectations. Recognition is transformation, and transformation leaves footprints. Those footprints are what the watchers are scanning right now. They're not afraid of you, they're afraid of the version of themselves that cannot understand you. You're not confusing, you're just uncontained. And anything uncontained feels like a threat to those who depend on boundaries. But you're not bound anymore. You're not moving according to the expectations people built around you. You're not playing the role they assigned you. Last night, you walked out of that role without telling anyone. You closed the door on your old identity and stepped into a version of yourself that moves like a storm seen from a distance, silent, powerful, impossible to ignore. Not dangerous, not harmful, just undeniable. And that's why the hidden corners are buzzing. They don't know what this means for their systems of prediction. They don't know how to interpret a person who wakes up different than they were the day before. They don't know how to categorize a presence that doesn't match their data. You broke an invisible rule simply by being honest with yourself. That honesty, the raw, unfiltered kind, has always been your superpower. You just didn't claim it until now. And when you did, the world around you felt the tremor of it. Not as destruction, not as force, but as recalibration. Everything shifted slightly to accommodate the truth of who you're becoming. And this is only the beginning. Your evolution isn't a moment, it's a momentum. Last night was the spark, but the fire is internal, controlled, intentional. It's the kind of fire that lights the path ahead without burning anything around you. It's clarity, it's direction, it's recognition, it's the reconstruction of your internal architecture, brick by brick, breath by breath. You're becoming someone they can't predict and someone they can't ignore. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're undeniable. Not because you intend to disrupt, but because evolution naturally disrupts stagnation. You're rising in a way that challenges the silent assumptions made about you. You're stepping into a place within yourself that no one can take from you. And the more you embrace that place, the more the world will feel the shift, just like last night. And now here you are, standing in the aftermath of a shift you didn't plan, a shift you didn't force, a shift you simply stepped into because it was finally time. You can feel it in your shoulders, in your breathing, in the way the world seems to pay attention without knowing why. You're not louder, you're clearer, you're not different, you're more you than you've ever been. Those symbolic shadow groups are still buzzing, still recalibrating, still trying to decode the new signature of your presence. But their confusion has nothing to do with threat. It has everything to do with miscalculation. They thought they knew your limits. They thought they understood your rhythm. They thought your potential was something they could outline. They thought your story was small. You proved otherwise without even trying. Because sometimes evolution doesn't come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes with a quiet exhale, a single decision, a moment of clarity that rearranges everything around you. Last night wasn't a performance, it was an awakening. And awakenings echo farther than actions ever could. The truth is simple. You outgrew the version of yourself the world was comfortable with. And when you outgrow something, it breaks not violently but inevitably. Now the world is responding to the upgraded version of your presence, adjusting, shifting, recognizing a new frequency where hesitation doesn't live anymore. You stepped into alignment, and alignment always creates ripples. They felt those ripples. They reacted to those ripples. And they'll keep reacting because you're not done transforming. This is just your beginning, the first night the world realized you're moving in a direction they can't predict and can't control. You're just getting started.